that don't know me, my name is Brooke. I was a group leader last year and a cabin leader. It was my first year at Wondervu. I came down with ALCF, Abundant Life Christian Fellowship in Knox City, Texas. And I was super excited for my camping experience. Little did I know what was going to unfold before me. The journey started when we were traveling up the mountain. It started out, I never really have had a problem with any kind of altitude sickness or anything of the sort. I even thought I would be okay because a couple years prior we had been to Denver and then gone up to Lookout Mountain in Colorado, and I didn't get sick or feel different or anything, so I was pretty much sure that everything would be okay.
A little later on, going up the mountain, Brooke started to feel a little sick or a little different. Like there was a slight tightness of her chest, and that she was beginning to have symptoms of not being able to breathe very well.
And then the minute that we were climbing in altitude, I started to notice certain things about my breathing, about just the difference in how it felt. The higher up we got, the little bit harder it was for me to breathe.
Of course, me being a Texan and always being on ground level, and never being up on a mountain, didn't know what was going on. Never being up on top of a mountain, I quite frankly didn't know anything about altitude sickness.
I know that I had even mentioned to Chad several times as we were traveling up the mountain that I asked him several times, Chad, do you feel it? You can't tell?
Nope.
You don't feel any different?
Nope.
Lucky you. Sucks to be me right now. It didn't really hit me about the altitude severely until I had to unpack my stuff and take it into the cabin. Everything was a little bit slower for me, walking, talking. They said if you drink water that it would help, and they had several suggestions as to what would help and what wouldn't help. So I tried the different things, you know. I remember taking my suitcase in, and my suitcase was heavy, of course. I remember trying to get my suitcase into the cabin and just not being able to breathe. And though it wasn't really hot up there, I was sweating profusely. Well, shortly after, I was headed back to the cabin after lunch to drop off some things and to get ready for workshop. And I was really not feeling good. I drove from the mess hall up to the parking lot and then walked from the parking lot to the cabins. Tex, another group leader and our pastor at our church, saw me as I walked to the cabin, and I decided I was just going to lay down for a little while. So I decided to lay down and take a nap while they were in workshop. And Tex knew where I was, so it was really no big deal. Well, as I was laying down, I think I slept for a good hour, maybe hour and a half, because I heard, I don't know how long workshops were, maybe 2 hours, I'm not sure. I heard the siren thing go off to let them know that we were going to a different workshop. I woke up, the alarm woke me up, and I noticed that it was the alarm for us to change workshops, and I thought, wow, I slept a really long time. But when I woke up, I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I was struggling, and I felt sick to my stomach, and just really couldn't move any part of my body at all, and was in a lot of pain.
During the afternoon workshop, in between the morning and the afternoon, everybody had a restroom break, and I'd already taken everybody to their second workshops for the afternoon, and the Holy Spirit said, do a room check. Well, if you know the Eagle, you know I argued. I didn't want to do a room check. I knew where everybody was at. I didn't think I had to do a room check. And the Holy Spirit said, start with the girls' rooms. I said, fine.
I needed help. I knew I needed help. I knew that something was wrong. And so I called out. I called out for I called out for help. But my cry was so light that nobody heard me. It was so silent that nobody heard me. Well, Eagle comes around, and I can hear him talking to the girls out the window. I can hear him opening the doors and checking if the girls are in there. But he hadn't got to my cabin yet. And the whole time, I'm crying out, Eagle! Of course, it was a lot lighter and more silent than that.
All of a sudden, I hear Brooke, help! All raspy and everything, and she was complaining she was having a hard time breathing, and she couldn't get up, and she was tired, and the whole bit. And knowing that Dave was having his Holy Spirit workshop, I went over there.
We're in Dave DeWell's workshop class where he's telling us on how he got his gifts and how he used them gifts at first. And then he started to teach and educate us all on how we can not only use them gifts, but how we can also release them gifts. For without warning, and I mean literally without warning, the eagle in perfect eagle form flies, and I mean flies, in that classroom and goes to Tex Cox, tells him something in his ear. I cannot make out what it is, and I guarantee you folks, they did not walk out of that classroom. They ran. They ran out of that classroom.
Then I went and grabbed all the other leaders, and we had 911 called and had the ambulances on their way up. And while I was in the room while I was between the room and trying to keep all the kids calm from running back there to find out, oh my God, what's going on? You know, because we all know how nosy kids can be. You know, I had to keep everything clear and ready for communication between us and the paramedics and everything else. And
so when the next church camp event staff came in the room, went to Dave DeWell and told him that there was a woman possibly having a heart attack, would you please come and pray for her?
A man come running in and he said, Dave, can I come quick? He said, this lady from Texas, she just died. I said, oh no.
And the next thing I know, Dave DeWell comes in and he asked me, he says, are you okay, honey? And I shook my head no. And he said, what's wrong? And I tried to talk to him, but I couldn't talk. I couldn't move. He asked me if I wanted to sit up and drink some water, but I couldn't move. And the next thing I know is that he shoots me.
I went up to her, and God's given me an interesting gift. Remember, Jesus said, heal the sick, raise the dead. Well, I just went in there, and God's given me this gun, and I went, I shot her like that, and I said, you still in there? And so I shot her again.
But all I remember is after the second time he shot me, I remember nothing except for what I saw.
Guys, when he shot that blood clot, she was out.
After Dave shot me the second time, I went into what I call complete darkness. Imagine being in a closet where there's no light anywhere around you. There's no light from a door. There's no light coming in at all. And you can't hear anything except for your own thoughts. And your own thoughts are not being spoken, but they're just like in your head. There's no sound. There's no light. There's no people. It's just you and the room. That's pretty much what I was seeing. It wasn't about blacking out, because when you black out, you're not aware of yourself. You black out. You don't remember what happened. I was completely aware of myself. The only thing I was unaware of is time. I didn't know, I had no concept of time. You know, I didn't know how long I'd been in that situation. And there was complete silence. I'm talking complete silence, no sound. There was no speaking. There was no people. It was just black.
All the while, the kids are all freaking out. Every leader's freaking out. Tex was actually probably the calmest one of the bunch.
And I look up at Dave, and I'm thinking in my head, I'm thinking to Dave, I said, man, you killed her. And Dave's looking at me, and he's like, I know, what are we going to do? You know? And he went right in the gear and started praying for her, and somebody was hollering, get a pulse, and he was checking her pulse, there wasn't any pulse, and we're sitting there praying, and people are praying.
And so I shot her again. And I saw her little eyelids start moving like this.
And all of a sudden, the eye over here started fluttering just a little bit. And the fluttering started in the corner and went all the way across to her other eye.
And I can see a little bit of light opening, and then it goes from one side all the way to the other. And then when I open my eyes, I see two Dave Dwells, and they kind of go into one Dave Dwell. And Dave kind of looks at me and he says, you okay, honey?
And the next thing you know, she opened her eyes, and when she opened her eyes, she took a deep breath.
And she came back to life. And she said, where am I?
All the color came back into her face. Man, it was awesome.
And I wanted to talk and tell him, sure, I'm fine. What's wrong with everybody else? What's going on? You know, I had no clue what had just unfolded until they actually told me. And the funny thing is that when I looked over at Tex, he's in the bunk bed in front of me, and he has his hands spread out, and he's speaking in tongues. And there's other people in the room screaming, you know, call 911, get a doctor in here. And, I mean, everybody's just like in a frantic, and I'm thinking, what is going on here?
The emergency crew came and took her down to the hospital, and the pastor stayed with her till midnight.
And come to find out, the doctors, when they ran tests and stuff on me, they did x-rays to find out what the problem was. All the doctors found was what they called HAPE, high altitude pulmonary edema, or fluid on your lungs. And they would not allow me to go back up the mountain. So I had to leave camp. I had to go stay in a hotel. They put me up in a hotel for the night. Tex drove me all over town trying to find a hotel, and when I got in the hotel, he made sure I was comfortable and locked in, but I didn't mean like literally I couldn't get out type thing. But anyway, he made sure I was safe and secure, and then he went off to go back up the mountain. And the next day was the big river rafting trip. So everybody left at, 6 in the morning to go off for the river rafting trip. And Dave Duell and Chad McGee and Tex Cox came down to the hotel room and got me out of the hotel room and prayed for me more in the hotel room. I had struggled that night because I was still hurting and still feeling, like I couldn't breathe. And they came the next day. Dave Duell prayed over me again and, did his thing. And then they managed to, get my car down to me, get it filled up with gas, and get me headed back towards Texas. So I got to spend 24 glorious hours at camp. There was a lot of people I didn't get to meet, and a lot of people I didn't get to say goodbye to. So this is kind of like my goodbye to everybody, but my hello at the same time. But I wanted to let everybody know that camp is an amazing experience. Not just from what happened to me, but for what's going to happen for you if you open your heart and you let it all in and you soak it all in and you really take the time to just love God and get to know God. My life has changed so much since that last year. I've seen people healed. I've prayed over people. I have this hunger for God now, and I'm not perfect. I fall all the time. I'm like everybody else. We all fall short sometimes, or we make mistakes. That's what grace is all about. And I'm very lucky to be alive, and I have a lot of friends and a lot of people that care for me. So My message to you would be just take this time at camp and make the best of it. But don't just make the best of camp. Make the best of the rest of your life.